Welcome back, media students. We just finished exporting our images from Photoshop. If you see here, I'll show you my root folder. So we exported all these images here, and this is our root folder that you're looking at. And we created our nav over folder and our nav up folder here. So this is going to be the nav images when the web page comes up. This is going to be the nav images when we mouse over each area. So what we want to do is set up this root folder in Dreamweaver over in our files panel over here. So what we need to do, let me minimize this here, is go ahead and open up Dreamweaver, make sure we can see the files panel, and we want to click on the down arrow where this green folder is right here. It's a drop down list, and this allows us to locate any websites that we have previously worked on, or you can add new websites or root folders. Whenever I say add new website, I mean add the root folder to Dreamweaver's files. And I'm going to click on Manage Sites to do that. Whoop, and here's the dialog box for that. Showed up on my other screen. And then I'm going to click on New Site, and we want to give this site a name. I'm just going to name it Goods Department Store. And then what we need to do is locate our root folder. So I'm going to click on the folder here, and that puts me into my Dreamweaver folder. And then this is the root folder for the website I'm going to be working on. So what you want to do is double click inside the root folder, and then whenever you're in that first level of the root folder, go ahead and click on Select, and now that adds that folder as your root folder. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Save here, and then click on Done. And you can see now, if I open up the Design Documents folder, well, there are all the design documents and then images. These are what we exported here. Now that we have our root folder set up in Dreamweaver over here, I'm actually going to collapse our design documents. Whenever I say expand a folder, it means click on this plus icon right here, so that's expanding the contents within that folder. Whenever I say contract a folder, that's hit the minus sign, and it brings all those contents back into the folder. It contracts it. So now what we can do is start creating our HTML pages. Now this is going to be a back and forth process through Photoshop and Dreamweaver with checking sizes and using Dreamweaver to then create the actual web page. So make sure you have Photoshop open, and this document is what we want open because we're going to be using this for a few things. And the first thing we want to do with this is go to Image and Image Size. Now we want to record this 788 by 830. So let's go ahead and remember those numbers. So that's the width and then the height. So 788 by 830. Yours is probably the same as this. It may not be. So let's go ahead and click on, actually I'm going to leave this up here, and I'm just going to go back to my Dreamweaver. And in Dreamweaver I'm going to click on the Create New HTML button here, and that's going to start us a blank document. Now before, whenever we worked on here, we used tables with our website. We're not doing tables, we're using divs. Divs are boxes that you can assign properties to and put images in, like we're going to use the images we exported from Photoshop. So let's go ahead and with our cursor in the main area here, I'm going to go up to Insert, go down to Layout Objects, and find AP Div. Now you'll see a blue box that shows up. Now whenever you're working with AP elements or AP divs, you want to make sure your AP elements menu is up. So if you do not see your AP elements menu, click on Window and then check off AP elements. And now you can see here, if I click this, it highlights the AP Div 1. The first thing we want to do is rename that, so double click on AP Div 1, and always the first div that you put in there will be your container div. So I'm going to type in here container, and that is our first div there. And if I click on the edge here, this will update my properties panel down below here. Now you can see a W here and an H here, that's for width and height. Now the 788 will go in this box right here for the width, so I'll put in 788. And then for the height it was 830, so I'm going to put in 830 here. Now it's important, whoops, let me click back on the edge here, and then that'll bring the properties back. It's important that you put the PX after your numbers. If you don't put the PX, it won't work. So make sure you have the PX here. And we'll get here in a minute the left and top values. Now when we make our pages, we want to make sure they're centered in the middle of the Dreamweaver window here, and then that will center it whenever it's previewed in a web browser or displayed in a web browser as a live website. So what we need to do is change the CSS style for that. The first thing we need to do though is go up to Edit, go down to Preferences. Whenever Preferences opens up, check on AP Elements and then check the nesting option right here. And then click on OK. Now the next thing we need to do is within our CSS Styles panel. If you don't see it on your right hand side, go up to Window and click on CSS Styles. But what I'd like to do is click and drag the tab of CSS Styles and put it underneath where your AP Elements panel is. And then I'm going to drag this up so we can see it a little bit. Okay, and go ahead and click on Current, the Current tab here underneath the CSS Styles tab. Click on the Current button. And then what we want to do is change the position to relative. And then we need to add a property. So just click on Add Property and type in Margin. M-A-R-G-I-N. And then in the value on, to the right column, or the right cell, type in Auto. And then click back over here and you can see it will center then your container. That is important. Now that we have our container created and centered, what we need to do is save our file. Notice that my file is already saved right now, but yours won't be. So do a File, Save As, and we just want to be in the first level of our root folder, and then you won't see any other internet documents in here. You'll just see the folders, and we're going to name this template .html. Go ahead and click on Save. And then you will notice over here that template.html will be updated in your Files panel. And I'm going to close out this other one I had. And you should only see one file now that's called template.html. And here is your container. Now what we're going to do is start putting our images in with separate divs. Now let's go ahead and resize our Dreamweaver screen here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on the little resize button up here, or the restore, and I'm going to position it towards the right side here, and I'm going to open it. And we really only need to see as wide as what our web page is. And if you do not have Photoshop open right now, go ahead and open up your file that you have sliced apart, because we're going to be using that in order to get the sizes of the divs we will be inserting into our HTML file. So let's stay with Dreamweaver here. Now, you need to remember this. You need to always click in the white area of your container div before you insert any other divs. And just remember that. And what we need to know is that AP divs are under the Insert menu, Layout Objects, and AP Div right here. So let's go ahead and click on that, and you can see that it automatically inserts it into the upper left hand corner. Now every time we insert a div, we want to go to our AP Elements panel, and we want to rename this div. So now this div is going to contain our first image right here, which is actually listed down here in our Files panel. Right here is image 1. Right there. So what I want to do is make sure that whenever I click on the edge, I want to explain this. You can click inside the div and you can see the cursor blinking there, or you can click on the edge of the div. Now if you click on the edge of the div, it will update the properties panel down here for the properties of the div. And we want to make this div exactly the same size as the image that it will be going into. So we will have to update the width value and the height value. And we'll get the width and the height value from Photoshop over here, and we'll go from there in a minute. But before we do that, this L number, that is the distance from the left side of the container over. So if I had another div over here, I would have to put over how many pixels over from the left side I would want that div to sit. And you'll see in the second one. But for now, we're just going to work on the first one. So if you don't quite understand that, you will here shortly. So let's go ahead to our Photoshop document over here. And it's usually best to have Photoshop most of the screen, or probably about 2/3 of the screen here, and then Dreamweaver about 2/3 this way, so you can easily go back and forth between the two. So in order to find the value, I'm going to click on my rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to click and drag out a selection that's the size of that slice. And if you can't remember where your slices were, just click on the slice tool and it'll bring up the numbers of the slices that you had. Now let's click back to the selection tool. And over in our root folder over here, the slice will be exactly the same number as the image that's in our root folder. So we're finding the size of this. So what I'm going to do is go up to Edit, copy merged, and remember Shift Control C is the command for that, so I will be using that for now on. But I'm going to click copy merged here and then go up to File New. Now we're not going to make a new document, we're just doing this because it makes the new document whatever your copy merged selection was. So now this is what size the image is over here, image 01, and this is the size we have to make our div. So let's go ahead and click back over to Dreamweaver, and you can see here now we can read the values and update the div. So click on the edge of the div, go down to width, this is 248, and this one is 114. And now simply once we have that done, I can go over to my files panel, find image 01, click and drag into the div, let go, just click OK from this point, and there's our first picture inserted to our first div. Now that we have our first image in, we'll go ahead and start with the second one. So I'm going to go back over to Photoshop, and I'm just going to click cancel. Now we have to find the size of our second image, which is our second slice. So I'm going to do a Control D, click and drag out a selection from the top left corner of the slice down to the bottom right corner, and I'll zoom in here so you can see it was right here. So this whole area, the border, make sure you include the border, that's fine, because that's what was exported from the actual image, or for the actual image rather. And I'm going to do a Control Shift C, Control N, that is copy merged, and then File New. And it gives us our widths here. So I'm going to go over to Dreamweaver, and oh, I can see I never renamed this. I said something about it, but I never did. So let's do that. You want to rename these images basically what you're going to remember them being. So this is going to be the store name. Store and then a capital N-A-M-E. You cannot put spaces in these names. It'll give you an error. So make sure it's one word, but between the two names, or the two words, just capitalize the second word, and then you can tell the difference between them, the two. So now I'm going to click in my container area and then go up to an Insert, Layout Object, AP Div. Now you can see here that it put it right on top of the other one, which that's what it does, until I click on the edge here and I update the left and the top numbers here. And notice that our div came in right in the same line in our AP Elements panel, which means that both of these divs are on the same level. If this div was indented a little bit underneath, that means now that the store name div is the container for the one we just imported, or inserted rather, and that's not good. So if you have that, undo it, go back to one div and then click outside here and then reinsert the new div. So anyway, the first thing I'm going to do is put the size of the image in here, or size of the div to match the image. So I'm going to click on the edge here, make sure the width is 540, and your numbers may be different than mine. Actually, most likely they will be different than mine. And then just press enter. And then we have a height of 338. So that makes it the size of the image, but now we have to have it sitting on the other side of this image here. So I'm going to cancel out over here. We don't need this anymore. I'm going to press Control D. But we want it to we want our left dimension to be the same as the width dimension for the first div. So we can see it's 248. So let's click on our second div. And I'm going to put in 248. Now make sure you put in PX. That's important or it will not work. And then press enter and it shifts it to the right. Now we have to insert our image 2 into this area. And remember, image 2 is the second slice. So I'm just going to click and drag, click and hold, then drag and drop. And then whenever the image tag accessibility attributes come up, just press on OK. We're not going to do anything with that. Alright, now it's basically this whole process over and over again. But there are a couple rules with this that you want to abide by. And I'm going to go through those as we go along here. But now you can see we have a third image here before we get into the navigation bar. So what I'm going to do is make this third image its own div. So let's go ahead and I'm going to make a selection around it. Press Control Shift C and then Control N, and now this is the value. And you will notice that all the left hand images here should be the same width, just depending on how you did your slices. So I'm going to go back to Dreamweaver here, click in the white container area, and then click in Insert, Layout Objects, AP Div. And now we have to make this the same size as what we have over here. So the width 248. And the height will be 46. And now we have to, I'm going to hit cancel here in Photoshop. Now we have to put it down from the top of the container the same height as this one here, our store name. And I'll go ahead and click on here, and actually let's click on our first div again, and it's going to be the same height as or the same top distance as the height of our first div. So you can see here the height is 114. So now you can see we can't see our div. So what we have to do is go to the AP elements, and it'll be the last one you inserted here. And if we would have renamed these as we put them in, you may have, I did not, we would know exactly which one it is. So let's click on there, and then we can make our top dimension that same value. And then actually while we're at it, let's rename these. This will be top RT pick, top right picture. That's for this one. And then this one will be, I'm just going to make this the bottom of name. So I'm just going to put BOT, capital NAME. I will remember that, so that's why I named it that. And then we have to insert image 3 into that div. And then click on OK. Alright, let's go ahead and do a file save. Now would be a good spot to start previewing this page just to make sure all the images are going in correctly. So let's go ahead and click on our little world up here, and I'm going to preview mine in Firefox. And now you can see it is actually looking pretty good. And if you drag your web browser wider and more narrow, you can see that it stays centered within that web browser. And notice that there are no seams between the images here. It looks like as if it did look before we sliced it in Photoshop. So that's good. If you saw like white lines here, or your images were not lined up over on the left hand side here, or once we get down the page over on the right hand side, then you did something wrong. One of your values is not matching up. And if that is a problem and you can't figure it out, make sure to call me over during class and I will surely help you fix it. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out here because I don't need it anymore. Now there's a rule whenever it comes into putting the nav buttons in. And remember, we put those in our nav up folder right over here. So I'm going to expand that folder. And you can see here, here's our slice 4, which is our home. So image 4, our image 4 is our first home image. So all the images for your nav will go into one div. So we have to create that div, the height and the width of all these images. So I'm going to Photoshop. And I'm going to click and drag out a box the height and width of all these slices, and then do a Control-Shift-C and Control-N. And then this will give us the value of the div we need to create. So let's go back to Dreamweaver. I'm going to click in the container white area, click on Insert, Layout Objects, AP Div. Now let's do what I haven't been doing and rename this div. This will be the Nav Bar. And now we have to position this, the height of both of these two divs here. But first I'm going to make the size. So it is 248 in the width. And in the height it is 198. Now what you could do, you could click on this one, find the height 46 and add it to this one. Whoops, that would be our store name one. Add those two heights together, but I'm going to show you a different way because once we work down the page, that's going to be harder to do, to keep adding all those values together. I'm going to hit cancel over here. Now I'm going to do a Control D, and I'm going to make a selection that is from the top of our number 1 image down to the top of the number 4 image, or the bottom of the number 3 image. And it doesn't have to be the whole way across because we don't need a left dimension, we just need the top dimension. So I'm going to do a Control-Shift-C, copy merged, and Control-N. And you can see the height is 160, so that's our top dimension. So I'm going to go back over here, put in 16. Whoops, I'm on the wrong div, so I'm going to take that out. Let's click on the right div here, and this is going to be 160px, and then you can see it fits right down to the bottom of this one. So I'm going to click on cancel over here. We don't need that anymore, and then deselect, Control D. And now I'm going to start with my image 4 and then click and drag into here and then click on OK. Now I'm going to start going down the list and putting these in the same div. So I'm going to click, and you notice if I hover over on this side of the div, it'll put the cursor to the left of my home button. If I hover over here, it'll put the cursor to the right of my home button. We want to make sure the cursor's on the right. So I'm going to drop that here, click OK, and you can see it goes right underneath just how it is over here. A lot of times you'll drag it over to here thinking that it's going to go in this way, but it doesn't. It'll actually put it in front of home. So if you're getting your images mixed up, Control Z it or just delete them out and then reinsert them as you go along. So I'm going to go ahead along the line here and get the rest of them in. And now they should all fit perfectly inside that div. Now this is a good spot to preview, so let's do a I always do the short command, so Control S is a save, and then you can see here F12 is the short command for previewing. So I'm going to just click on here for now, but in future use I'm going to do a Control S, F12. Okay, and that looks good, no seams at all. And this is where, if you're new to this, this is generally where things start to get a little messed up. So I would, until you really get the hang of it, check your seams with every div that you put in. But I'm not going to do that right now just because I am experienced at this and I shouldn't have to do that. So just make sure you are doing it though. Once we put one in, go ahead and make a new, or preview it. So I'm going to do image 10 here, which that would then bring us back to our regular list of images here. So again, click in the container area, go up to Insert, Layout Objects, AP Div. And then I'm going to click on this area, and this will be our new arrivals area. And we need to find the height and the width for this. So go to Photoshop and use your selection tool. Do a Control Shift C, Control N, 540 by 280. Insert those. Okay, that's good size. Now we have to position it. So I already know that it's going to be sitting over 248 because that's been the width of all these images. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in the left. So 248 px. Yours may be a different value. And you can see that shifts over there. But now I don't have to add these ones up. I just have to do the height of what this div was. So you can clearly see down here that it was 338. And then click on the new arrivals, and that'll be the top dimension. Actually, 338. Yep. So let's go back to new arrivals. That'll be my top dimension, 338 px. And then that shifts it down there. Then I can go ahead and grab my image 10 and throw that into here. Click on OK. And now we have an issue. You can see that my div is bigger than my image. So let's go back to here. And okay, you can clearly see that I went to the wrong guideline here. I went farther than that, and you guys may have caught that whenever I did that, but you can see if you go too fast through here, you can make mistakes. So what I'm going to do is just press Control D and re-drag that out so I can find the values there. Control C, Control Shift C, and then Control N. And you can see it's 238 is the height. So let me go back up here and change this number to 238. And you can see now it's exactly the same size. So let's go head over and hit cancel on Photoshop. Now the next one we will do is number 11. Now I'm going to go ahead and drag out my selection here. Do a Control Shift C, Control N, and then there's our value. So I'm going to click in the empty area here, and then insert layout object AP div, and let's resize this. This will be the news section, so I'll actually name it latest news, and then I will do the size 248 by 260, and then we have to find the height of all these divs here in order to find the top dimension here. So I'm going to go back to Photoshop. I'm going to deselect and then drag a selection down to this area, down to the top of the 11th slice, and do a Control Shift C, Control N, and you can see the height is 358, and that will be our top value, 358 px, and then that shifts it right where it needs to be. Now I can go ahead and grab my number 13 and then throw it into here. Whoops, 13 wasn't it? Let's delete that. Cancel, that would have been number 11. So let me go to my number 11, throw that into here, click on OK, and it should fit right in. Now let's we have to do the check out our summer styles area, so let's go back to Photoshop. Let's select this area. Let's do a Control Shift C, Control N. There's our size. Click in the blank area. Insert layout objects, AP div. So we are 540 by 138. And let's rename this to summer style, or I'll just put new styles because it's not always going to be summer styles. And then we need to find the left dimension, and like I stated before, it's going to be the same width as these ones, so I'm going to go ahead and add that as 248 px. And then I need to get the height of where it needs to be, the top dimension. So it's the height of these two divs together. So I'm going to cancel over here and then cast that selection down to number 12. Do a Control Shift C, Control N, and you can see the height is 576. So I'm going to click. Whoops, let me click on the new styles again. And let me put that to 576. Whoops. PX. Now you can see that we're lined right up, so we can grab our number 12 image, click OK. And okay, now if I click on that div, you can see there is another issue. Excuse me. Okay. Apparently, I only selected from here to here, but I really wanted to select from here down to here. That was my mistake. So, Control Shift C, Control N. And the height would actually be 176 instead of 138. And now it's good. So I'm going to go back to Photoshop. I'm going to hit cancel here, but let's actually go back to Dreamweaver. I'm going to do a Control S to save, and then do an F12 on the keyboard to preview in my browser. And you can see there are no flaws, no seams, no white spaces, so we're good. And if you do see any of those, you may have to back up, rewind the video a little bit to keep following along. So I'm going to go ahead and close that and go back to Photoshop, deselect. Now 13 is going to be our customer support box, so I'm going to do a Control Shift C, Control N. There's our size. Let's click in this area, insert layout objects, AP div. The width is 248, the height is 96. And now let's go up and rename this to, I'm just going to put CUST SUPPORT. You can abbreviate. And now I need the height of all these divs together. So let's go back to Photoshop, cancel that dialog box, deselect, and cast a selection all the way down to the top of 13. Do a Control Shift C, Control N, and our top value is 618. So let's go ahead and add that in to our div, 618 PX. You can see that should have shifted us down all the way. Yep, looks good. Now that was slice 13, so let's find image 13. Click and drag that into here. Click OK. It's looking pretty good. I don't see any obvious errors, so I'm just going to keep working my way down the page. Now let's go back to Photoshop here. Now we have 14 and 15 left, and that's the only two images I have left over here, so we're doing good. So let's do a Control D, and I'm going to cast a selection for 14, Control Shift C, Control N, and we're 248 in the width and 38 in the height. So let's click in that empty space, insert layout object, AP div. We have 248 here, and then 38 in the height. And now this is just empty space that has color in it, and a little bit of the left border. We'll just name this BOT for bottom, and then we'll say CUSTSUPP for bottom of customer support. So we have customer support and then bottom of customer support. So now we need the height dimension of that. So let's go to Photoshop, cast a selection, or deselect first, cast a selection all the way down to here, Control Shift C, Control N, and that height is 714. So let's go back to here and put in 714 px. Then click and drag our image in, click on OK. And that looks pretty good. Now all we have to do is the footer, image number 15. So let's go ahead and I'm going to zoom out a little bit because I got to go the whole way across the page for this one. Control D. Select that whole area, Control Shift C, Control N. Here's our value. I'll click in this empty area, go to Insert, Layout Objects, AP Div, and let's rename this to Footer. And then let's put these values in. We have 788, and then we have 78. And then we need a height for this. So I'm going to cancel this out on the Photoshop and then just cast the selection all the way down to here. Actually, I'm going to Control D that and make sure I'm going from the top. Can do a Control Shift C, Control N, and then that height is 752, so that would be our top dimension. 752. Whoops. Make sure you put the PX or it won't work. And then here's our image 15, and I'm going to click and drag into here. Click on OK. And now that we have all of our divs in and all of our images in, I'm going to save, Control S, and then preview F12. And if you don't remember, it's where the world is, and then you can click on here. And now scroll the whole way down, look for any imperfections, seams, or white lines, and it looks pretty good to me, so I'm going to go ahead and close that out. And now we just saved. Now the next thing we need to add to our website to make it look better is a background color, and we're going to match this fringe that you see here, the gray color of the fringe. So let's actually, before we do that, go back over to Photoshop and hit cancel and deselect, Control D. And let's go back over to Dreamweaver, and I'm actually going to drag out the screen a little bit here. Now what we want to do is just click out into the white area here, and there's a Page Properties button at the bottom. If you don't see the Page Properties button right here, you can always go up to Modify and then Page Properties, and it's the same button as this down here. So let's go ahead and select on that, and now it has a background color option, and I'm going to click in this little box, and that's going to open up a color picker, and then I'm going to go over and match that color that is for the background fringe there. I'm going to click on Apply and then OK. And now let's go ahead and save this, and let's see what it looks like in the web browser. So I'm going to press F12, And if your F12 does not work, see me and I'll show you how to get it set up to work. Okay, so now let's go ahead. I'm going to actually go open this up full screen, and actually it looks pretty good. Everything matches up, no seams whatsoever. Okay, that's good. And now you can see it flows right into here. Now let's I'm going to go ahead and close this out. And now the next thing what we want to do is make the dynamic part of the navigation bar. So excuse me, what we did was create nav over buttons here. So let's actually contract the nav up folder and open the nav over folder. Now image 1 is the same as home. You may have named yours according to whatever the button is. That's fine. Mine are named just 1 through 6. So my image 1 is the same as the home button here, but the words are shifted over a tad bit. So what we're going to do is create the rollover effect for this. So whenever we hover over this area, the home button will actually shift to the right a little bit. And then once we come off, it'll go back, and then whenever we go over apparel, that one will go off, and so on and so forth. So what I want to do first is go ahead and select on this button. Make sure that image is selected, and you'll see these little black squares, and it kind of highlights it a little bit. And what we need to do is go find our tag inspector panel. And if you don't see this panel, it will be under window and tag inspector. And now we're gonna I'm gonna drag this down a little bit, and I just hover over the separator between the panels until it turns to a double arrow, click and drag, and I can give myself some more space for this panel up here. Now anyway, in the tag inspector panel, we can click on behaviors. And now what we have to do is add a behavior to this image to have a mouse over effect. Now, in order to do that, what we need to do is click on the add behavior button. And it's going to bring a drop down list. We need to pick on swap image. And now it has our image highlighted here, and then we want to click on browse, but make sure preload images and restore images on mouse out is checked. Make sure both of those are checked. Now click on browse, and I'm going to go to my images folder, go to my nav over folder, and then click on image 1, and then click on OK. And then I will click on OK. Now you can see it has a on mouse over swap image, and then an on mouse out swap image restore. Let me actually bring this out a little bit. And you always need a swap image restore with this swap image. So now that we did that, I'm going to save, Control S, and then let's preview F12. And you can see once I hover over home, it moves. It actually uses the behavior for the mouse over of this original image to swap out that image to the one that it shifted over. So that works perfectly fine. It looks good. So what I want to do is do that for each one of these images down below here. So I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to click on apparel, go up to the tag inspector, click on the add behavior button, click on swap image, click on browse, find your apparel button, click OK, and then click on OK, and you should be able to see the swap image restore and swap image. As long as you pick the right image, it should work perfectly fine. So I'm just going to continue on and go the whole way down the list here. So toys, swap image, browse, toys. Okay. Okay. Now electronics. Okay, now whenever you're done with all of the images here, let's save it and preview. And all your mouse over buttons should work just fine like mine do here. And overall, it's working out very well. So I'm going to close that. Now the next video will be part 6, and we're going to save this as a template, and then we are actually going to start saving our home page, and then we are going to make another template, and that will be for our sub pages, and then we're going to be using the images that we took earlier a couple weeks ago and putting them in here as our products for the goods department store.